My name's Jen, and I am a therapist in Boulder, and I work with parents all through stages of parenting, including postpartum. So I'm excited to speak with Sarah today about baby blues and what's not the baby blues.
Yes, I'm so excited for today's conversation. Today, we're going to talk about on the continuum of sleep deprivation and on the continuum of mental wellness, what is to be expected and managed and just held with the truth that it is when you are a new mom or a parent again. What is to be expected, and then when does it cross over into a space to need help? So I'm going to talk about the sleep, and then we'll pass it back to Jen, and she's going to talk about mental health and mental wellness, baby blues versus depression. So when it comes to sleep, lack of sleep, interrupted sleep, sleeping in chunks, in not long periods, not through the night, that's all to be expected when you have a young newborn. They are not capable of sleeping through the night. And so last week we talked about a strategy for parents to get 5-hour chunks, and the way that you can help each other and support each other to get a 5-hour chunk, which is a great way to bolster this time period, is to at least get a 5-hour chunk and then maybe naps throughout the day. But what it looks like when sleep is crossing into sleep deprivation and actually into a danger zone is if you are experiencing what is called a micro sleep. So I never knew what this was called before I did this work, but I experienced it plenty of times. So a micro sleep is the phenomenon a lot of us have had experience while we're driving, and we get drowsy, and then we have this moment where maybe you hit the rumble strips, or you're like, whoa, where am I missed my turn. So it's a period or an episode of sleep or drowsiness where it could be a fraction of a second up to 30 seconds, where even arbitrary sensory input is ignored and we are unconscious. So our eyes can be open, we could nod off, but a micro sleep can happen just looking at you. You know, somebody doesn't even look like they're asleep, but their brain goes into shutdown. The biggest cause is lack of sleep, which happens with early parenthood or that first trimester after birth. It can happen with, of course, sleep medical issues like narcolepsy and apnea and things like that. But we really want to pay attention if, as a parent, you're, let's say, nursing, and all of a sudden you like almost kind of do a little drop or a little like a muscle twitch, and you're like, whoa, I was falling asleep, I didn't know it. We want to be aware of that. If you are driving and that's happening to you, want to be aware of that and take precautions to be safe. Because if you are that sleep deprived and it's happening at home or in the car, it will happen other places. So I'm curious, Jen, did that ever happen to you? I know it happened to me.
Yeah. I had that. I know that it happened driving. I have very distinct memory of just, it's like I lost like 2 seconds. It was
Yes.
literally 2 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking, I wonder how many other women are driving right now and they have not had any sleep, and they feel like we feel like, or we need to go to work and we didn't sleep, or we have to go get food and we have to drive, and all these women are out on the road and they're just half asleep. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a real problem. And I see it two places, one with driving and two with holding babies on the sofa or the couch. And it happens with both partners, and it can be super dangerous. So of course we all are aware of babies and risks and stuff associated with falling asleep on the couch. And so the recommendations are that if you feel like it's possible you could fall asleep with your child on a squishy couch or an armchair, anything, a rocking chair, that it would be best, especially if you're a nursing mom, it would be best to have a safe, like an empty mattress, a hard, firm mattress without pillows and blankets around. To do a side laying nursing session would be very very recommended by pediatricians and sleep experts everywhere. It is much safer than falling asleep and potentially crouching over or getting stuck in an armchair. We just don't want to do that. If you feel at all like you might fall asleep, it'd be better to pass off the baby to somebody else, put them in a safe sleeping position on their backs, or nurse them in that way. If you are too tired and you feel like there's any chance you'll fall asleep driving, please don't drive. Please get your groceries delivered or take an Uber or anything like that. One of my very first clients called me because his wife had that happen. She was driving back to work. She's an amazing, brilliant heart surgeon, worked in the ER. It was time to go back to work. And she had one of those episodes, a micro sleep on the way to work, and nearly hit a tree. So it's just so important that we pay attention when we're on the continuum of sleeping. If we're in that danger zone, to not only get help, get support for sleep for you and your child, but also to mitigate some of those dangerous activities like holding your child and in driving. So in the scheme of things, that's the danger and the symptom that we should look at. When it comes to mental wellness and mental health, Jen, tell us about, how do you know on the continuum? Because we all know we're going to be weepy and there's hormones and things, we're going to be tired. So when do we know it's too much, or when do we need to get support?
Yeah, I want to throw a caboose on what you just said, and then I'll go to the mental health thing. One of the things that it took me a long time to kind of hit home myself when I was a new mom was, I felt like my experience was I had to go to work. I had to go to the store. I had to do these things. And so at some point for me, I had to get to the place where it was like, all bets are off. I need to do anything I can to get sleep. So for me, like when I was like, I am literally like day sleeping, like, or people would be talking to me and it's like, I just left for a little while. That to me is like, just this thing is like, you're not supposed to know how to do this by yourself. There's no thing that was like, well, you should figure it out. Yeah, don't drive, but then also you need sleep, right? Like it just, this gentleness that I was able to cultivate for myself, it took a long time because I really wanted to do it by myself. And it wasn't even saying like, I should do it by myself. I just want to do it by myself. And part of me didn't want help. I didn't want anyone in this space with me. Right. And so just cultivating a gentleness and like a kindness to like, I'm going to open up to letting people into this space with me. As a responsibility to my child and the welfare of people on the road, but also like, I'm going to become a person who has help. And so my motto the year after my son was born, I had come up with a motto. It's like a little cheeso, but for like 2020, I have a motto, and like, right. It was winners ask for help. Yeah. And so it just gave me this permission of being like, you're hardcore. And like part of being hardcore is that you ask for help. And so anyway, that's an aside.
I love that. And you know, what's great is for me, what I identified in order to get a little more sleep is I identified that the people around me had love languages that were acts of service. Right. And how wonderful if I could continue doing baby care, but I could allow them to show their love for me and my family and this new child by doing my dishes, by doing the grocery shopping, by scrubbing the floor. Like, yes, I could do that. And I wanted to do it all. Like I had this drive to handle it all. But if I could do that and, you know, maybe take a bath or take a nap, it was so much more soothing and restorative for me as a mom. And I agree, you kind of have to let people help you, for sure.
Right. And I think for really smart, successful women, that can be like a really new place to be in.
For sure.
And it used to mean something different. So anyway, okay. So mental health, when what's happening is something that we really need to get help with, and when what's happening is uncomfortable and part of a metamorphosis. And I think they might overlap some, right? So technically the baby blues, if you Google it, it's like a couple weeks. It's defined, I think in some places it says somewhere between a week and 4 weeks.
Yeah, I've heard like 10 days, 14 days.
Right. And so let's say be generous and say a month. And that's like a little outside of the true definition, right? So it's like if you're nursing, your milk comes in, or you're just kind of getting acclimated, like we got the baby home. Like it's really pretty limited. you might have some thoughts that are like, whoa, that's a thought I never had, but they're rare. Baby blues is like, this is hard and I'm tired, and like, whatever's happening, you're like, oh, I'm so tired and I'm crying, that kind of thing. So the other thing is we think of baby blues or depression. So I'll go into what the signs of like a deeper depression looks like. But then there's also some other things we'll go into next week, which is anxiety and OCD. And there's other things. It's not like you just get depressed. But let me clarify here. So there's a sense of hopelessness with actual, the DSM has changed. The DSM is this beautiful diagnostic manual that you probably don't ever want to read, but it's the people who like technically give you like the code number for what you have, that kind of thing. And that's changed a little. They don't actually use postpartum anymore. I won't go into all of it, but I'm going to talk about the words postpartum because I think most people speak of it that way. And even like physicians usually speak of it that way because they're not mental health clinicians per se. So how it's defined now is a depressive disorder. Like you have depression, and then there's a caveat like because postpartum, or they call it peripartum. But anyway, so there's a real quality of hopelessness and a deep sadness, and it's pervasive. It's not like at 2 a.m. when I feed my baby, I just cry. It's not like, oh, I'm just kind of sad and like tired-ish sometimes. If you're really in postpartum depression, you're mostly feeling sad and hopeless or kind of lost. And that is a big difference between some baby blues and depression. The length, how long it goes, and how long it goes, duration of days, and how much it fills your day.
The pervasiveness. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's the first markers. So if you like are not able to have happy thoughts, like for me, I know that I had postpartum depression because I would look at my baby and say, he's beautiful and I love him. I will do anything forever, but I did not feel joy. It was like, I will die for this baby, but I wasn't like, oh, do.
Yeah.
Occasionally, but mostly I just felt like I got to protect my baby.
Yes.
And so that's really a different thing. Like your brain actually doesn't even run. So like we were talking last week, how there's like upstairs, downstairs. There's like little neural pathways into the happy department. You don't go there. Like you don't go to the happy department. Even like somebody brings you like your favorite cookie and like mocha or whatever your thing is, and normally you'd be like, oh, nom, nom, nom. You're like, great, thank you. Depression feels really different. And it can go anywhere from like, I just feel kind of like all the way into like, I wish that I wasn't here and I didn't have to do this anymore. I think when people, so that's like getting towards suicidality. And I think when people think about being suicidal, we think about it as like this other thing, like people who are suicidal, like that's not me. But if you're sad in a way that you feel like I kind of don't want to be in my life, like that's where we're starting to head towards suicidality. And a lot of times I talk with moms and they have no plan to kill themselves, but largely because like, I would never do that to my baby.
Right.
Right. So I'm not worried they're going to kill themselves. But if you feel like you don't want to be in your life, that's really depression, even if it's in the first couple of weeks. So one thing that I really, especially as a mental health provider, I think can be really confusing is there a good reason for me to feel this way or not? We have, I don't know if it's just our culture or if it's humans, because I haven't worked in a lot of other cultures, but why you're depressed, or why you're extra sad or hopeless or whatever, it might be for some really good reasons. We know that there's an interesting thing about, I could go into I love theory, but I'll try not to go into too much theory. We have these identities, like we identify it, like I have a job and I hike and I ski and I do all these things. And anytime you lose something that you feel like you identify with, your sense of self gets distorted. Like you kind of don't know who you are anymore. And when you're a new mom, you've lost most of the things. You're not going to work. You're not leaving the house. Your body is different. How you think is different. Everything, like
your independence,
your relationship to your husband, the way you talk, you have to be more needy. So many things.
The control over your own time.
and your body, everything. Like,
Yeah.
so, I mean, not everything. I don't want to be like, most of how
It's a
we know
lot.
ourselves is gone.
Mm.
So, and that creates this really, and every time that happens in a lifetime, it creates usually depression, because we're lost and we don't know ourselves. It's very sad and scary and confusing, and it can be hopeless. So I bring that
Yeah.
all up is because I want to really normalize, if you're having more than baby blues, part of this is a deep spiritual experience that you're having. You can understand it however you want, but whoever you used to be, you have to become somebody else. You're not just raising your baby, you now have to create a new you.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big job. And so being lost might just be part of what that job looks like.
That's right.
So I
Yeah.
just
And
want to put it out there, like,
mm-hmm.
however you are might just be how you need to be. And that doesn't make it fun. But it does mean that
Yeah.
you're not messing up and you're not weak and you're not, it just, this is where you're at and this is what you've got to do. This is what you got to
Yeah.
go through. Right.
Yeah, I love that. That's something as a birth doula I talk to a lot about. And I don't think you can truly get it until the weeks after birth. I know I didn't, but I share with people, you are giving birth to your child, but you're birthing yourself as a mother. And
Right.
even though as a pregnant person, you're often making decisions that are informing and creating your motherhood, like you're already protecting your child. Even as you're considering having a baby, you are doing motherly things.
Right.
But there is this period of rebirth. I like how you call it metamorphosis. I think it's beautiful. My question is, do you think in it, if you're having postpartum depression, I definitely heard the longevity and the pervasiveness, I think we can be aware of. Do you think a lot of women are aware that it's happening, or how do people end up even in contact with you? Is it other people are noticing, or there's some other symptoms that just bring them in, and then you're able to kind of guide them and say, like, maybe this is happening? How does that work usually?
Yeah, I think that, thanks for bringing that up. It's really helpful. I think usually when you're in that space, um, our self-awareness goes down pretty low. We get sort of like in our head in a way that we
Mm,
can't see ourselves very well. So a lot of times it'll be our partners, or, like maybe your siblings, like if you have a sister or a mother or family, or a close friend, someone who knows you really intimately will be able to say something like, you're not being yourself.
mm,
So, but it still can take a while to hit home, to really understand how far away you are from the people, from the person that people knew, and the person as how you know yourself.
hmm
um so I mean, really, when we start to hear, if you're in a position, you're like, I don't know, maybe, and then your partner's like, yes, and your mother's like, yes, or whoever it is that's in your life, just being willing to entertain it a little bit more. It probably, if everyone's saying yes, unless they're always attacking you in your whole life and you can't trust them, which is probably not the case, then you can probably trust that they are seeing something that's worth looking at. We're
Yeah.
rarely likely to see it ourselves first, but one of the markers people get, and I think I said this last time, you start having thoughts that are like, I don't usually think these kind of thoughts.
hmm
Like,
Right.
this is like new kind of thoughts for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, super helpful. I'm looking back at my experiences, and I clearly had something going on with my first birth just because of those things, just like the inability to kind of break out of certain thinking patterns or get excited about things that were normal. Like my mom, her whole advice to me is, she's like, you need to sit in the sun for 5 minutes every day. And I remember with my first, I was like, that's ridiculous. That is hard. Who are you to, like it seemed
Right.
insurmountable to stand in the sun. And then with my second, I just felt like, okay, this is hard. I am tired. I'm going to go stand in the sun because I know that's helpful. I'm going to allow help. I'm going to get a therapist appointment early in this process. I'm just going to kind of check myself out. And just, it was like, I just had more mental health hygiene, I think, the second time around. And of course, you learn a lot your second time, but I think now I can see it, and it's helpful to know, if you're in it, what are you feeling? So I think you explained it very, very well. So I want to kind of go to close with you. And one thing we got this week is we had some feedback that people
Yeah.
loved our first video and wanted to know about specific situations. And I do want to break down, this particular mom had a question about how do I sleep with one eye open and not have anxiety about transitioning my child into a big boy bed. And I totally get that. I've been through it. And as a sleep strategist, I work with parents all the time. So I have some sleep tips that I want us to entertain maybe next week or the next week. But before we dive into that specific, do you want to just talk about situational anxiety and what might be happening? And then we'll wrap up for today.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So back up a little bit to where I said that our identity as who we are is all changed. Everything's changed.
Yeah.
It's like one of the things we like when we prep to be a mom, we're like, I got all these cute booties and onesies and diapers. And what I love is to see moms prepped. Like I got my therapist like ready and I got, I have all these people are going to come in like we're going to need more help than the baby.
Yeah. Your postpartum doula
Right.
is scheduled.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But that segues into this idea of having a baby is terrifying. And it's partly terrifying because of hormones and all of this stuff. But let's be real. I think there's a way in which people who are not in this don't want to deal with the amount of intensity that there is around having a baby. So they're like, it's fine. You just calm down, like pat on the head, right? But
Mm.
really, it's scary. I mean, we know about like things like SIDS and all these things that are really, this is a fragile person. There is real threat. And so what the call is at this point when we have the situational anxiety, it's going to happen from the day one all the way to for the whole life of our kids, is to meet ourselves in the tenderness of the moment. If we trust that we've done the best that we can for that situation, and when we use our prefrontal cortex, we know like, this is like pretty good. Like I came up with a good solution. I have a good idea. This is what I want. And then we still feel kind of tender and scared. It's part of building that new self is starting to build a relationship to ourself that is coming from kindness and appreciation for all that it really entails to be a mom to this tiny person.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, my kid is in his crib sleeping. Sarah, help me. He's sleeping away. I'm in my bed and I'm like, oh, my whole body's like, I just want to go get him. And just laying there and being like, yep, this is so scary because I never know that he's going to be okay for sure. And so I can sit with myself and say, be gentle. I can breathe and I just can feel scared and I can feel sad and know that that is actually an appropriate response for a mom who loves her baby, and just keeping
Yes.
it in an amount that is an amount I can carry with me into life and it doesn't hold me stuck here.
That's beautiful. That's
Yeah.
so beautiful. And you're right. It applies to everything. It applies to bringing them to the dentist, and it applies to like bringing them to school for the first time and
Right.
turning around their car seat. And yeah, it's as if we need to have this pattern with ourselves that it's like, it's okay to be concerned. We are loving parents that are concerned, and we make great decisions and we thought this out. And it's like you kind of have to have this pattern. And I think that's a beautiful way to talk about what it is to be a parent. And I just want to say, if anybody that is watching this has specific questions about this topic, about sleep or about mental wellness in the postpartum period, or just parenting, mental health, please let us know, because we have left a little time in our future series to address them. So we will address the specific situation and give you some tips and tricks in future episodes. But I think this is a great place to end. I want to pass it back and just see if you have any final thoughts before we say goodbye for today.
No, mostly I would just say you are becoming an amazing human being, every one of us. And this job is really hard and really awesome, and just make space for you to do whatever you need to do in it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, go do something to take care of yourself today, moms and dads, and we look forward to seeing you again next week. Bye.